Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture the North American plains, but let's say 30 million years ago, where you'd expect to see a bison. There's something else. Something
Yeah.
terrifying. It's built like a buffalo, but its legs are long, almost slender, and its head is just enormous with these fangs and cheekbones that look like something from a nightmare.
A medieval war machine.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It just looks like it was built for pure domination. And paleontologists, with their great sense of humor, they gave it a nickname, the hell pig.
We are talking about Daeodon. It was the apex predator of its time, the largest known member of this extinct family called Entelodontidae. And, for anyone who loves ancient megafauna, this animal is a true, intimidating star of its era.
But the story of Daeodon is so much more than just its scary anatomy. It's also tangled up in this scientific chaos.
Oh, absolutely. It's a story about its biology, what made it this perfect bone-crushing omnivore. But it's also interwoven with this fierce historical rivalry, the famous Bone Wars, that kept its identity buried under a pile of different names for decades.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to get to know this ancient beast, understand how it was built to survive, and finally sort out all the drama behind its name.
You're about to meet the dreadful tooth.
Okay, so let's start right there with the name that causes all the confusion, the hell pig.
Yeah.
Biologically, was this thing actually related to modern pigs?
That's the first question everyone asks, and the simple answer is no, not really.
Okay.
I mean, the nickname pig stuck because, it has that general snout shape and overall look, but Daeodon wasn't a true pig. It belongs to the Entelodontidae family, which is this extinct group of even-toed ungulates.
So they're cousins, but like very distant cousins.
Very distant. They share the same order, sure, but they branched off millions of years before modern pigs ever showed up. It's like, sharing a continent, but definitely not living in the same house.
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
It means we're looking at a totally unique evolutionary path.
Yeah.
And unique is definitely the right word for its size. When we try to picture this thing, what's the scale we're talking about? Because my brain is having a hard time putting pig-like and bison size together.
And that's the disconnect, right? This was a giant, it stood nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder.
Wow.
That's easily as tall as a big modern bison or a Texas longhorn. And if you look at its skeleton, it's got some surprising features for an animal that huge. It had these long, almost weirdly slender legs and hoofed feet.
So it was fast.
It suggests that despite its bulk, yeah, it was capable of speed. It was definitely built for moving over long distances.
And the combination of size with that big bison-like shoulder hump that just screams power concentrated right over the front legs.
Precisely. That hump would have been the anchor for just immense neck and back muscles. But you mentioned the real standout feature already.
The head.
The head. Entelodonts, and Daeodon most of all, took head size to an extreme that it almost seems physically impossible.
Disproportionately large doesn't even begin to cover it. The skull alone was something like 90 centimeters long.
Yep.
To put that in perspective, that's nearly half the animal's height. How did it even hold its head up?
It had the bioengineering to back it up. That huge skull was necessary to house its primary tools, those massive jaws, and more importantly, the anchor points for the muscles that drove them. The head is what really defined Daeodon.
Okay, and speaking of anchor points, we have to talk about the cheekbones. They're totally unique to this family. They're these huge, strange flanges of bone that are called juggles. Why? What was the point?
The juggles weren't for looks. They were critical infrastructure. Think about a power lifter. They need stable points to apply leverage from. These juggles, these big bony cheekbones, they acted as those anchor points for the masseter muscles.
The big jaw muscles.
The huge jaw muscles, yeah. They allowed the jaws to open shockingly wide, kind of like a hippo's. But even more importantly, they allowed Daeodon to generate extreme bone-crushing force when those jaws snapped shut.
So those bizarre facial features were literally armor plating for the muscles that powered its bite.
You got it.
Which brings us perfectly to what that power was used for. The family name, Entelodont, it translates from Greek to perfect teeth.
And that name, perfect teeth, it tells you everything you need to know about how adaptable it was. The key feature of this family isn't just the big tusks up front, it's the structure of its back teeth, the bunodont molars.
That's a term maybe not everyone knows, but they actually have them.
They do. We have them. Bunodont molars have crowns with these low, rounded points. And this structure, it's found across pretty much all successful, flexible omnivores. We have them, bears have them, raccoons, and so do Daeodon.
It's a dental Swiss Army knife.
Exactly. It works whether you're chewing on tough plants or processing bone.
So if you find those teeth on a fossil, you know right away that this creature, whatever it wasn't a picky eater.
Right.
But the evidence points to Daeodon being way, way on the carnivorous end of the
Sure.
omnivore scale. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. The Bunodont molars gave it that ecological insurance policy. It could munch on roots and bulbs if it had to. But the front teeth, the tusks and canines, they were massive and heavily used for ripping into flesh. And we know from the wear patterns on the fossils that crushing bone was a regular part of its diet.
So this wasn't just some scavenger nibbling on leftovers.
Yeah.
An animal that regularly crushes bone is doing one of two things. Either it's an expert at cracking open skeletons left by others,
Or it was taking down its own prey and eating absolutely everything, the whole thing.
which seems highly likely. I mean, to be the biggest predator around, it had to be a dominant force, whether it was stealing a kill from something smaller or taking down an animal itself.
The Daeodon just didn't leave anything to waste. Its size, its speed, its jaw power, it occupied this niche that just maximized every single calorie it could find. A truly formidable animal.
Okay, and this is where the story shifts from, ancient ecology to some very human drama.
Yes.
An animal this impressive should have a pretty straightforward name, but its history is it's a mess. So where did these entelodons even start their journey?
Well, they started far from North America. The first ones show up in Mongolia sometime back in the Middle Eocene, and they were an incredibly successful family. They spread all across Asia, Europe, and Africa.
And like so many animals that ended up in the Americas, they had to cross that oceanic divide.
Exactly. They used Beringia, the land bridge that connected Siberia and Alaska when sea levels were lower. They got to North America during the late Eocene, around 38 to 33.9 million years ago.
A superhighway for megafauna.
It really was.
And they made it all the way down to Oregon. And in 1878, the American paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope, one half of the famous Cope and Marsh rivalry, he found the first fossil evidence. And this is right at the peak of the Bone Wars, isn't it?
It's the beginning of the most ruthless period in American paleontology, for sure. Cope and O.C. Marsh were in the scientific arms race, just rushing to discover, classify, and name new species. Speed was everything, and accuracy sometimes took a backseat.
Cope was definitely inspired by this find, though. He named it Daeodon Greek for dreadful tooth or hostile tooth.
Which is a great name. It fits perfectly. But in his rush, Cope made a huge classification error.
What did he do?
He misinterpreted the fragments he had, and he put Daeodon on the wrong family entirely. He put it with the odd-toed ungulates, the group that includes horses and rhinos.
Which is completely wrong. This is a cloven-hoofed animal, an even-toed ungulate. That's like mistaking a wolf for a rabbit.
It was a massive mistake, yeah. But it just highlights the pressure of that era. But the story gets even more complicated. Almost 30 years later, in 1905, another paleontologist, O.A. Peterson, finds a much, much more complete skeleton in Nebraska.
A game-changing specimen.
A monumental one.
Right.
And Peterson knew right away this wasn't a rhino relative. He correctly identified it as an entelodont.
Okay.
So because he had this better specimen and the correct classification, he gave it a new name. Denoius hollandae.
Which means terrible pig.
Terrible pig, exactly. So now this one animal had two main identities. Cope's original Daeodon and Peterson's Denoius, plus a few other minor aliases that had also been thrown around over the years.
It's just a complete mess. You have the best, most complete, correctly identified specimen called Denoius, and the name from the first fragmented, misclassified specimen called Daeodon. How do they finally clean that up?
It took nearly a century. This is where taxonomic law gets really important. It wasn't until 1998 that researchers finally concluded that, yes, Daeodon, Dinoecius, and all the others were all the same single species. The process is called synonymizing.
So when you synonymize, which name gets to win? Because logic would say Denoius, right? The one attached to the best evidence.
Logic would say that yes, but not taxonomic law. The international rules of scientific naming have this thing called the principle of priority.
Meaning
Meaning the name that wins is always the original name that was first published in the literature.
So Cope's name wins,
Yeah.
even with the mistake. The dreadful tooth beats the terrible pig.
Exactly. Even though Denoius gave us most of our knowledge about the animal, the rule of priority meant the species had to revert to its original name, Daeodon. It's a fascinating, kind of frustrating lesson that scientific naming is bound by history and rules, sometimes over the quality of the evidence itself.
The shadow of the Bone Wars lasted right up until the turn of the 21st century.
It really did. It shows that science is never static. It's always a system of refinement and sometimes historical compromise.
So we know how they lived, we know how they ate, we know how they got their name. But when did this incredibly successful line of giants finally disappear?
Daeodon and the rest of the Entelodon family went extinct by the early Miocene, somewhere between 23 and 16 million years ago. They had a remarkably long run, though. Millions of years dominating their ecosystems.
For an animal that was so big, so adaptable, it could crush bone but also eat roots, that ultimate insurance policy you talked about, it's just baffling that they vanished. Do we have any idea what happened?
And that is the big, persistent mystery. There's no clear extinction event. Scientists suspect there was some kind of major ecological shift.
Climate change.
Possibly climate change, or maybe increased competition from new successful carnivores that were evolving in the Miocene. But as for what delivered that final blow to such a dominant predator, we just don't know. We need more fossil clues to really unravel their final years.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? You now know the hell pig was this incredible bison-sized omnivore engineered for extreme power. Its massive head and bone-crushing jaws let it thrive where other animals would have starved.
And you know that its true identity was hidden for decades, not because of bad fossils, but because of a fierce human rivalry. The story of Daeodon really confirms that shifting names isn't a sign of scientific weakness, but actually evidence of our constantly evolving understanding of deep history.
So since the extinction of Daeodon remains this big question mark, and we're talking about a beast that should have been able to survive almost anything, what unknown factors could have been powerful enough to wipe out this ultimate predator? Was it some undiscovered disease? Or did a new competitor show up that we just haven't given enough credit to? And what other paleostars are maybe caught up in their own naming dramas right now, just waiting for the rules of priority to settle the score?
Something for you to mull over as you think about the true power and the true fragility of ancient life.